Today will be another historic day at the Supreme Court. Today, the justices will hear oral arguments on whether or not Obamacare violates the Constitution by requiring that individuals buy insurance or pay a penalty.
So there are 26 attorneys general challenging President Obama's health care law. And our next guest is one of them. She actually started it all, I think. Pam Bondi is Florida's attorney general, and she joins us live from D.C. this morning. Good morning to you, Pam.
Good morning, everybody.
All right, so Florida was integral in getting the ball rolling in taking on Obamacare. You were inside the court yesterday. What was that experience like, and what did you learn?
I was sitting at council table with Paul Clement, who is he's arguing the case for the states. He's absolutely brilliant. And, well, I felt very confident, and I felt that the justices asked very thoughtful, very intelligent questions. And I'm confident that they do not believe this is a tax, which means it's good for the states, which means that the Anti-Injunction Act would not kick in and would not prevent us from going forward with our lawsuit until all of this craziness is implemented.
Right. And the thing about the individual mandate, which would require people to either buy insurance or pay a fine, is if the federal government can compel you to buy insurance because they feel it's in your best interest, what's to stop the government from saying, okay, we think you should buy an electric car because that's better for the environment, or we're going to compel you to buy health food because we think you'll live longer?
There is absolutely nothing that can keep them from doing that if they are allowed to do this. And that's why this case is so very, very important to every single one of us, because it's about so much more than health care. Just like you said, if they can do that, there will be absolutely no limits on the federal government.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's a little of what went on yesterday as the debate went on whether this whole case should go on until this thing is implemented in 2014. Listen.
Congress has nowhere used the word tax. What it says is penalty. Moreover, this is not in the Internal Revenue Code, but for purposes of collection. And so why is this a tax?
General Eberle, today you're arguing that the penalty is not a tax. Tomorrow you're going to be back and you'll be arguing that the penalty is a tax.
So how does he get around that? Because he was speaking, Justice Alito was speaking about the Solicitor General who's arguing for Obamacare. How will he get around that argument today of no tax and then, yes, it is a tax?
Well, he's basically going to have to argue in the alternative. And I can tell you, as a prosecutor for 20 years, you lose a little credibility when you argue that way. Of course, yesterday they had to say it wasn't a tax because our president has been all over the TV. The budget director has been in front of Congress saying it's not a tax. Now, today, they're going to have to argue it's a tax, because the only way that they can argue that this mandate is constitutional, they have two ways, is one under the Commerce Clause, and as we just discussed, we're not participating in commerce, we're just sitting here, and they're trying to force us to purchase a product simply by being alive. And the second way is they have the power under the taxing authority. So it's going to be very interesting. My guess today is they're going to try to take the focus away from the constitutionality and focus on healthcare policy. And that's not what this is about. This is about an unconstitutional overreach by the federal government.
And in particular, you're talking about the individual mandate, whereas
yes,
I would imagine there are certain parts of the Obamacare bill that you like. You probably like the fact that of pre-existing conditions. You probably like, you can keep your kids on your health care family policy until they get a job at 26, things like that, right?
Well, and we all know we need health care reform. I don't think any of us are disputing that. But this isn't the way to do it. And, what we're going to argue tomorrow is the severability issue as well as the Medicaid expansion. Right. And, where they're forcing us, they're saying, hey, states, hey, Florida, if you don't participate in this program, we are pulling every single penny of your Medicaid funding. And those are hard-earned tax dollars. So they're coercing us into participating in this program as well. And that's not how you pass a health care bill.
Wow.
That's just not how you do it.
Just 2,700 pages.
Yeah. And I can't imagine how many thousands of pages you had to read and study to get ready for the Supreme Court appearance. But we got to wrap it up there, Pam. But we will touch base with you again, and we'll wait to hear what they decide at the end of June.
Great.
Thanks, Pam.
As you go back to the courtroom.